His Excellency Mr. Beni Omer, Ambassador of the State of Israel to Nepal, Her Excellency Dr. Anjan Shakya, Ambassador of Nepal to the State of Israel, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the joint webinar of Center for Diplomacy and Development and Nepal Institute for International Cooperation on Nepal-Israel relations, 60 years of excellent partnership. To speak on this interesting topic, we have excellent panels. To start the program, may I now request Mr. Mohan Krishna Sesta, founding president of CDD and former Nepalese ambassador to France, to deliver welcome remarks.
Thank you, Pramod ji. Dear audience and friends at home and abroad, on behalf of Center for Diplomacy and Development and Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, I would like to welcome you all at this webinar. Actually, this is the fourth webinar we have hosted, and we have found that this is very convenient way of reaching the people. Maybe it is a gift of lockdown, I think. Today, we have invited for this topic His Excellency Ambassador Beni Omer and Her Excellency Dr. Anjan Shakya. And I hope after some time they will be making their excellent presentations on the state of relations between our two countries. However, I feel on the basis of my knowledge, it will not be a very bad idea to speak a few words about our relations. On 1st of June 1960, Nepal and Israel established diplomatic relations, and ever since we have been maintaining very good, excellent relations. Actually, one fact which is enumerated by our ambassadors also, a very important fact is there in our relations. When the State of Israel was established in 1948, Nepal was among the foremost countries to recognize the State of Israel. The government and people of Israel have never forgotten this fact. Actually, Israel is a very developed country, and Nepal is a popular destination for Israeli people, especially among the young. Personally, I also hold good admiration for the people of Israel. They are very friendly, very skilled, and they have a lot of astuteness. They are good businessmen, excellent diplomats, and of course, valiant soldiers. I remember that when I read some news item some time ago, there was also one Mr. Benny Pellet, who was the former chief of the Israeli Air Force. I think there are many Benny in Israel, as our ambassador is also Beni Omer. He was such a skilled pilot, fighter pilot, who flew all types of fighter planes of that time. I remember that news item which I read some time ago. And also, Israel is such a country which is surrounded by 27 hostile countries. Yet, they are the most dynamic and vibrant country, known to everybody. And more details report coming from both ambassadors. I don't need to go on details about this. And on a personal note, me and my wife visited Israel in March 2014 when I was ambassador in Paris, and we stayed about 10 days with a short hop to Cyprus also. We found Israel a very nice country, very clean and very decent. People are very friendly. And also we visited Dead Sea, about 422 meters down from the earth between Israel and Jordan border. There was a temple in which the sacred water of Dead Sea and the stone of Everest was put together, and it was attracting a lot of tourists also. I want to mention here one trait of Israeli people. That is, Israeli people come to decision very lately after going all details. But once they come to decision and agree, they fully implement it. This is the impression which I got from the readings about Israel. With these few words, I would like to thank our ambassadors for accepting our invitation today, and I hope their presentations will be contributing to strengthen our relations between our two countries and our two people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The first speaker for today's event is His Excellency Mr. Beni Omer, Ambassador of the State of Israel to Nepal. His Excellency Mr. Beni Omer is serving as the Ambassador of Israel to Nepal. Earlier, he served as Charge d'Affaires at Embassy of Israel at Kathmandu, Ambassador to Cameroon, Ambassador to Cote d'Ivoire, Chief of Department at the Political Research Center at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Jerusalem, Head of Office of Interest in Israel in Tunisia, First Secretary Political Affairs at the Embassy of Israel in Brussels, Belgium, Second Secretary Political Affairs at the Embassy of Israel in Ankara, Turkey. He holds the degree in law from Tel Aviv University. He has a specialization on the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Excellency, the floor is yours. You have around 20-25 minutes.
Namaskar. Hello, everybody. Hello, dear Anjan. Hello, all the friends in Nepal. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. I have to apologize first for joining a little bit late. I have some urgency in the family. I apologize for that. But definitely, as Mohan said at the beginning, Ambassador Shrestha, there are so many good Shrestha's around this beautiful country. And he just mentioned a few facts about Israel. You know, we are a young country, but an old nation. It's more history, more than 3,700 years. And we were obliged, as you know, to spend some 2,000 years out of our country in what we call diaspora. And finally, 72 years ago, in 1948, we got our independence, being recognized by the Family of Nations in United Nations in New York. And after 2,000 years of absence, we came back to our homeland. And we are thankful for that. And in the context of Nepal, we do not forget that Nepal was the first country in South Asia to recognize Israel. And the Prime Minister at the time, B.P. Koirala, visited Israel in August 1960. And it was a historic visit during which he met Ben-Gurion, the father of our independence, our first Prime Minister, a historic personality that we do not forget, to whom we owe our independence today. It was a very courageous decision from his side, although most of the leaders at the time, there was no government, of course, but the government to become were against, because we were surrounded by Arab countries hostile to our existence in the region, and we were attacked by 5 different armies. And we were only 600,000 people at the time, no air force, no weapons. We can say that it is a miracle that the State of Israel was established on the 14th of May, 1948, Friday afternoon in Tel Aviv. Ben-Gurion declared independence. And then for 6 months, we had a war of independence. And finally, we could enlarge the borders more than what the international community offered us on the 29th of November, 1947. That was the famous partition plan, who decided that the British mandate at the time should be cut into 2. One, future Israel, Jewish nation, the other one, future Palestine. We accepted the program, the partition plan, but the Palestinian side refused, and that is how we have this tragedy of the Palestinian refugees until today. Sorry for, there is a problem of telecommunication. Let me see if I am again with you. I am again with you. I don't know if you hear me.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes, sorry for that. I have a problem here, technical one, but if you hear me, that's already good. Just to say that since Nepal recognized Israel on the 1st of June and we established relationship, we have a special place in our heart that we consider Nepal a very important friend of the State of Israel. And since then, the relations are wonderful. We are this year celebrating 60 years of diplomatic relationship. between our two countries, and the cooperation in many fields was flourishing along the time. And one of the major events we can all remember is the aftermath after the earthquake of April 2015, during which Israel was one of the first nations to send aid, humanitarian and medical aid to Nepal. Still, we are facing a wonderful potential that Dr. Anjan back in Israel, Ambassador Anjan Shakya, and myself, and later on my successor will continue, and like my predecessors did, to diversify the relationship, to add more elements, not only cooperation with Mashav, which is a relationship with developing countries in the fields of education, agriculture, health, and gender issues, for example. Not only that, since the last 7 years, every year, 500 young Nepali farmers go to Israel for a period of 11 months in what we call Learn and Earn project. And during 11 months, they work in a kibbutz, in a moshav, and they learn what is modern agriculture like we do in Israel. And once they come back home, many of them create cooperatives. Many cooperatives, you find them in Ilam, in Japa, in Lamjung. Lamjung is the biggest one with 116 members. And they created like a small kibbutz in Israel. And you have flowers and vegetables and animal husbandry and producing. It's amazing to see the success story of this wonderful project. It is like a jewel in the crown. And I'm so proud that we have it since the last 7 years. Although nowadays, because of COVID-19, we are facing a problem, logistic, how to bring back the Nepalis, the 500 who are in Israel, and to send the new ones to go again for another year. I hope we shall overcome this problem soon. But I can tell you that during the last few years that I could be here, the last more than 2.5 years, we are trying also to work with not only the government to government, which is very important as an embassy and very natural for us, but also to diversify activities with the civil society, as well as the private sector of Nepal and Israel. And in this context, we are trying to advance a few agreements that are pending between our countries, the cooperation in the fields of energy, education, culture, and many others. And hopefully, following a last visit of the head of Mashav, Ambassador Gil Haskel, in December 19, I hope that we can establish in the near future what we call Center of Excellence in Agriculture, in horticulture mainly. It's a model that has been working many years in India. It's a wonderful success story. And I believe and I hope that soon the government of Nepal will give a green light for that, because the model is that Israel brings the know-how and the hosting country is covering the whole finance of it. Once we have a green light from the government of Nepal for financing this project, we will be able to establish the first Center of Excellence in Agriculture, and later on to have for each province among the 7 provinces of Nepal, each province should have one Center of Excellence in Agriculture. We have some more ideas. Maybe I should stop here and let you continue with the other speakers. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Excellency. Now we'd like to move to the next speaker. May I now request Her Excellency Dr. Anjan Shakya to make her remarks.
Namaste, all of you. Ambassador Beni and President of Center for Diplomacy, Mr. Mohan Krishna Shrestha, and moderator, Dr. Pramod, and all the participants joining in this Zoom webinar, and also who are participating via Facebook. All of you, good afternoon. And I would like to thank organizer for organizing this Zoom conference to celebrate our 60 years of anniversary between our two countries of our diplomatic relations. As I heard from Ambassador Beni, he has explained more about our relations between Nepal and Israel. Actually, Nepal is the first country in South Asia who recognized Israel as a state in 1960. June 1st, when we established our diplomatic relations. And our late Prime Minister, BP Koirala, also visited Israel. And then after 1961, Embassy of Israel in Nepal was established. And our late king visited Nepal in 1963, late King Mahendra. And then after, there are so many visits from Israel as well as from Nepal. And I would like to tell you about a brief about our relations between Nepal and Israel. At the very first, I would like to say, Israel is a beautiful country and one of the most innovative countries in the world. Nepal is the country where most of the Israelis said Nepal is their second home. And they would like to visit Nepal and again and again. Whoever visited Nepal, definitely that Israeli would like to visit Nepal. Nepal recognized State of Israel, as I already mentioned, and since then we have very excellent bilateral relations. The relationship between the two nations have remained always amicable. And now we are celebrating 60th anniversary of this establishment of our diplomatic relations. The first day, June 1st, 2020, when this year we are celebrating 60 years of our relations. So we are successful to establish telephone talks between our Prime Minister, our Prime Ministers between Nepal and Israel, and also foreign ministers between two countries. And we have already exchanged their messages, both of them. And also we have lots of plans to celebrate our 60th anniversary. And I would like to highlight some of my works that I started my journey in Israel as ambassador. I met several times to the President of State of Israel in different occasions after I presented my letter of credence to His Excellency on 14th February 2019. He expressed his gratitude towards Nepali soldiers who are rendering exemplary works in a number of UN missions stationed in and around Israel and are working tirelessly towards regional stability. He reiterated that Israel's values the friendship between Nepal and Israel that dates back to decades. I invoke the motto of government of Nepal as prosperous Nepal, happy Nepali, exhorted for Israeli support in the forms of transfer of technology in diverse sectors like, as our friend Ambassador Benny told, in agriculture, irrigation, education, health, information and technology, as well as in establishing centers of excellence of agriculture sectors in all provinces in Nepal. And President Rivlin expressed his commitments to meet all initiatives taken by the government of Nepal, which is very welcoming part for Nepal to us. And I started to establish endless friendship with Israeli people from the very beginning. I found them as President Mr. Mohan Krishna said that I found them very warm, cordial. And I would like to say, before I left Kathmandu, Ambassador Benny told me that Israeli people are like sabra. And I really found that they are just like sabra. It's a cactus fruit. And they are very hospitable. The cactus fruit, the sabra, is like the outside is very hard and inside they are very soft. And with their loveliness, my more than a year here passed so fast that I couldn't even realize. It's almost now 1 year and more than 5 months already. Visionary leaders like BP Koirala of Nepal and David Ben-Gurion of Israel played crucial role in shaping and nurturing our bilateral relations. Over the years, leaders and people of both the countries have contributed to further develop and strengthen the bond of friendship and cordiality existing between our two countries. I'm thankful to the government of Israel for their continuous support in various fields such as agriculture, education, energy, trade, tourism, science and technology, foreign employment, etc. Since I assumed my office, I have been continuously talking with ministers and high-level officials from various ministries of government of Israel. I would like to bring to light some areas that we explored. The first of all, I would like to highlight about the agriculture sector, which is most important for Nepal, because Nepalese people around more than 65% people are engaged in agriculture sector, whereas less than 3% Israelis are engaged in agriculture sector. But not only they can feed their citizen, but also they are exporting in abroad. So we have to learn this system from Israel. So in meetings, I paid my utmost efforts in establishing Agriculture Center of Excellence in all 7 provinces of Nepal. Now it is at the final stage of signing of MOU. It will create self-employment in this agro sector in Nepal if we can open Center of Excellence very, very soon. Thousands of Nepalese will get employment in Nepal, so that many youth countries who are going abroad, then after they will get opportunity in Nepal, inside our country. And in this Center of Excellence, the Israeli Technological Cooperation will assist in transforming Nepali agriculture from subsistence level to commercial level. And the background is, of course, Mashab. I would like to mention here, Mashab is Israel's Agency of International Development Cooperation, has been providing training to Nepalese nationals working in private and government sector. Around 500 Nepali students, they travel to Israel under Learn and Earn project annually for agriculture training programs for 11-month course in 5 agriculture colleges or centers of Israel through Sana Kisan Vikas Bank. I have visited all the centers as I arrived here, and later on I have been visiting continuously to the centers and farms where our Nepalese students work there and study, and we usually go there to orient them regularly and attending their graduation ceremonies as well. Because of this COVID, now I have to stop and I have to pause this orientation class because of this COVID situation is coming here like second phase in Israel. So they are putting some more restriction to move in Israel. After I assumed the office, embassy has started keeping records of the students so as to utilize their agricultural expertise and to provide it as per the need of government of Nepal and the private sector. This is the keen point. Whenever I meet the officials of Israel, they always ask what you are doing for your students who graduated from Israel in agriculture sector when they go back to Nepal. In Nepal, there are almost around 3,000 students, graduated students, and we have to find their opportunities in Nepal. So they always ask to make this database. So we started from our Nepal embassy to collect their data, and then we are disseminating that data to the government sectors in Nepal and also private sectors, whoever they need to cope such students as expert and consultant. And also, we are not focusing on this agro student to increase their number, but also we are trying to enhance, to increase the scholarship in Nepal. For that, we informed that we need to do cultural agreement, education agreement to provide any scholarship for Nepali students in Nepal. And also, Israel has developed many technologies and innovations in health, education, IT sectors that can be also introduced in Nepal. So we are also working on it. And I got opportunity to participate the 25th anniversary of the program for students in agriculture held at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I was requested to speak on behalf of Asia. As the training period of 11 months is not sufficient, is not much sufficient, I urged on behalf of Asian countries to select best students and provide them training for extra period so that to enhance their capacity to act as consultant when they go back to their countries, which is not happening now. So they are working on it as we requested them. The state of Israel is a pioneer of agricultural technology and has substantially increased its per unit productivity within a limited land for a limited number of species by the use of high-tech structures, mechanization, and proper dissemination of technical knowledge among farmers. Possibly no other country like Israel has helped the world with so much agricultural breakthrough in terms of food security and food sovereignty. This is the reality. And also students are much benefited, and hope that they will apply their knowledge and ideas, what they gained, and they will definitely implement in their countries as a good agricultural practices they received here. And also one achievement, it happened here, that MOU has been signed between Araba Nepal and ICAT. So after this signing MOU, I hope that some students, not only students, maybe some experts and farmers can be benefited to get training for their capacity building. And another sectors I would like to highlight, foreign employment, which is very, very potential area in Israel. And Israel is the best country to come here to work for employment, because Israel is very security-based country and very friendly country, and protect not only their citizen, to the foreign citizen also they protect a lot. And for the female people, Israel is the best place to come to work. And as I exhorted, the pilot project was successful about these caregivers, and we have been striving to reopen the caregiver sectors in full fledged. However, it took 7 months for me to make them agreed. There are around now caregivers here in Israel, 2,400 caregivers, and some of them we have to repatriate before 3 weeks back because of this COVID pandemic situations, and they need to go back to Nepal. So we help them also. And for the upcoming new caregivers, now the situation is very open. The current news I would like to share here that the day before yesterday, we succeeded to accomplish Nepal-Israel bilateral consultations on roadmap for negotiation of a bilateral agreement regarding the recruitment of auxiliary workers for long-term care facilities in Israel via high-level Zoom meeting between Ministry of Foreign Affairs, PIBA, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Health together from Israeli side, and from Nepali side, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Labor, and Department of Foreign Employment. And Israel Embassy in Nepal, Nepal Embassy in Israel. We did a Zoom meeting, a high-level Zoom meeting to bring caregivers here in Israel. And the demand, Israeli side, they announced around 500 caregivers in nursing sector, in hospitals, nursing homes, and daycare centers. This is quite different than the previous, we did pilot project, and we have been bringing the caregivers. This is quite different. The another agreement will again, it will happen, but after this successful of this bringing around 500 caregivers, if we could be successful, then definitely that will be increased near future. And I hope that thousands and thousands Nepalese people can come here to work as caregivers in Israel. And not only that, we are also trying to open up new sectors of employment in construction sector and hotel sector. And also, additionally, we are also exploring Nepalese farmers to work in Israel. This is the sector for the foreign employment. And we did work on education sector also. After my arrival, we were successful to increase 30 quota students in learn and earn agro studies, because when I left Nepal, I heard that they decreased some Nepalese student for this learn and earn project. Then after I arrived here, Nepal Embassy worked very hard to increase their number, and happily to say that some around 30 students, they got the opportunity. And we are also trying to increase the number of Nepali students, not only agriculture sector, to bring students in Israel for intermediate course, bachelor, master, PhD, and fellowship in scholarship in various fields of studies. And for this, we have to do education agreement, as I mentioned before. And this is in our top most priority sectors in Israel. We are working in this sector also. And I met some Nepalese graduates where they studied in different universities in Israel. We even tried to organize exchange of visits at the level of professors, doctors, scientists, teachers, engineers, students, academicians, faculty members, and other levels, so that both sides will be benefited. And I would like to request here from this webinar, I would like to disseminate the information to especially the students. It is very easy to come to study in Israel if they can personally make satisfied to the professor, to the concerned university and concerned areas. If the professor is happy, they will give scholarship for any students in the world. So many students from different countries, they are coming here. Why not from Nepal? From Nepal, we saw only 18, 19 students, they came here in their personal capacity, they can come here. So I would like to open up these areas to come students to study in Israel. And Israel is also very best country to study in education sector. And we were also successful with Nepal Embassy and Nepal Embassy in Israel and Israel Embassy in Nepal. We are working together every time, like each day, Ambassador Benny and we are talking each other how to do work together. And we were successful to do high-level telephone talks between Prime Minister of Nepal, Right Honorable KP Sharma Oli, and Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, had telephone conversations very early time, like 20 April 2019. Already they spoke, and then after, at the time of the day starts of our 60 years anniversary on the June 1st, 2020, we also did second time high-level conversations between two prime ministers of Nepal and Israel. And they discussed on various matters of Nepal-Israel bilateral relationship and mutually invited each other for the exchange of visits. Prime Minister Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu thanked the Prime Minister Oli for the supports that Nepal is extending towards Israel in multilateral forums. The telephone talk contributed to increase the number of Nepali students coming to Israel for agriculture training. Also, I can say that proudly. And it can be believed that the telephone talks at the level of prime ministers will bring the bilateral relations to a new height. And our prime minister also had a telephone talk with the president of State of Israel also. As I mentioned, high-level talks between two presidents of Cyprus and Israel, and also Prime Minister of Israel with our Prime Minister, two foreign ministers. They invited each other and forwarded their request to visit their countries. Also, we passed these messages, and I believed and I hope that I confirm that it helped a lot to protect Nepalese, at least in this COVID pandemic too. And also, we were successful to make successful high-level visits of our ministers from Nepal. Minister of Land Management, Cooperatives and Poverty Alleviation, Honorable Padma Kumari Aryali, visited in 2019. The bilateral talks held with Minister of Labor, the Construction Minister, Minister of Agriculture showed their willingness to support Nepal in various ways. She was informed the land mapping, geodesy, cadastre, and geoinformatics, advanced identification, tracking, and security solution. The land information systems included secured land title certification, secure portal where landowners can handle their land-related affairs, pay their bills, strong audit trail, and reporting capabilities. It showed land management practices with all-inclusive solution technology was briefed to her. Then later, Minister of Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation of Nepal, Honorable Yogesh Bhattrai, visited the State of Israel in 2020 at the invitation of Israeli Tourism Minister, His Excellency Yariv Levin. Now he is the speaker in the Knesset. to participate the tourism market, International Tourism Market 2020, and they discussed about the possibilities of operating high direct flights between Nepal and Israel, along with other tourism-related issues, including the signing of a memorandum of understanding between two tourism ministries. The bilateral meetings held with the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Economy has brought a lot of hopes to enhance our bilateral relations in the areas of culture, tourism, civil aviation, agriculture, labor, energy, trade and investment, among others. And also another high-level visit from Chief Secretary of Nepal, Mr. Lokdarshan Regmi, visited Israel in 2019. He is the highest official ever visited Israel. He met his counterpart in Israel and held bilateral talks to enrich the relations at a bureaucratic level between the two countries. After the continued and rigorous efforts following the talk and proposal of to establish Center of Excellence in Agriculture sector, Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs arranged a visit of Ambassador Gil Haskell, but we also arranged all the high-level meetings. Not only I accompanied Ambassador Gil Haskell, we arranged high-level meetings with Right Honorable Prime Minister and 9 ministers in Nepal, in coordination with Embassy of Israel in Nepal also. The visit concluded the draft agreement of MOU to establish Agriculture Center of Excellence, which has entered the phase of signing at the last stage now. The meeting was also held to do MOU on energy, MOU on education, science, culture, and sports. We also handed over the invitation letter from Right Honorable President of Nepal to His Excellency President of Israel to have his state visit to Nepal. Perhaps he will visit Nepal after this corona pandemic situation. And another, I would like to highlight some of the social promotional networking we did after my arrival. I visited Ulsan Medical Center, Save a Child's Heart, whose support made Nepali baby Avita's surgery possible. I would like to highlight this case because it's very important for us how the Israeli people are so much cordial and helpful. This Avita baby, she had a congenital health problem, which was treated in Ulsan Medical Center in Israel with the support of Mr. Morris Khan. And he's a well-known philanthropist and one of the major donors of this Shakya, as Israel-based international humanitarian organization, whose initiatives have saved more than 5,000 lives and restored eyesight of thousands of people. I met him and thanked the medical team for such generosity. And I also extended him the invitation to Mr. Khan to visit Nepal for the health campaign in eyes and heart related issues. And he's very happy to come to Nepal, but probably after this corona again. And also I have been participated in different programs and seminars held by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Israel. And once President of State of Israel hosted Women in Diplomacy Network at his residence. Issues on women empowerment, involvement, and motivation were discussed in the network, where I highlighted the exemplary constitutional provisions of Nepal, stating about the alternative representation of male and female in government's vital posts and opportunities for women in Nepal. So we highlighted they are very much impressed about Nepal after listening this environment. On 7 August 2019, I met with veteran singer Gali Atari also, the first Israeli Eurovision contestant who sang about Nepal around 40 years ago. Because I want to highlight, because of her, so many Israelis come to Nepal. She has been making Nepal popular among Israelis with that song about Nepal. And she applauded me and the embassy for coming to see her concert, saying that Nepal is not far away now. Because she explained in her song that there is a country, Nepal is very far away, and Nepal is a very beautiful country, she explained in her song. And she told when I met her that Nepal is not far away now because of the ambassador of Nepal is here. And later on, I found that many Israelis visited Nepal because of her song. So I admired her and the writer of the song for their wonderful job. And one good news is I can now sing her song, that song also. And usually I used to visit some different people who have very concern with Nepal, and especially on my birthday, I met with a family of late Omer, who lost her life in a road accident in Nepal 5 years ago. Also, I met with parents of late Captain Tamar Ariel, as Israeli Air Force navigator and Israel's first female Orthodox pilot, who lost her life in the Himalayan blizzard of Nepal in 2014 at the age of 25. And Israeli government admired her a lot. Captain Tamar lost her life in course of rescuing victims of avalanche in Annapurna region of Nepal. Embassy salutes their families and such other families who showed their courage to live even in such difficult times of losing their dears in Nepal, and hopes their stories would inspire generations to generation and conveys the message that could be the unprecedented of our lives anywhere in the world. And my active involvement in many events, programs organized by government of Israel, diplomatic missions, social networks, Rotary clubs, schools, universities, colleges, hospitals, kibbutz, moshav, so many companies, international women. I'm the member of International Women Club in Israel, and also the program of Ambassador Club of Israel. I usually visit them to enrich our relations, to promote Nepal, and of course Israel also. And also we, Nepal Embassy participated in Nepalese program, caregivers program, and the UN missions, UNIFIL, UNDOF, ONSO. They are here in Israel, and Nepalese students in different colleges. And another sector I would like to highlight about the business sectors, private sectors, because we have been in touch with Chamber of Commerce in Israel. Nepali artists participated in International Art and Craft Festivals, which is one of the biggest exhibition in Israel, 2019. And 2020 also they are planning for this because of these situations. They are trying to postpone it. And when the artists came, we went to visit their stall. When we found that all of their jewelries, handicrafts, arts were sold almost completely. It means that there are so much scope in and we were successful to do MOU between Nepal Israel Chamber of Commerce and Israel Nepal Chamber of Commerce on May 21, 2020. And I'm very happy to announce here that for the very first time here in Israel, it opened Nepali restaurant, Gurkha restaurant in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And we added, Nepal Embassy successfully added their restaurant in database in the list of Experience Nepal, welcomenepal.com catalog. Their number is 598. So that in the world, whenever the people just search that Google nepalwelcome.com to search the restaurant in Israel, then they will find this Gorkha restaurant, and they can come throughout the world, wherever in the world they can come to eat Nepali food, Nepali cuisine in Israel. And we are also trying to facilitate to import Nepali goods, as I mentioned before, in Israeli market. And another very potential sector is health. Health sector is very, very significant in Israel. Due to continuous effort of Nepal Embassy, we are succeeded to provide scholarship, to give scholarship for one doctor from Nepal to study in Hadassah Hospital in Israel. But yet we don't know who is he, who is that lucky doctor. We don't know. When he come to visit us, then definitely perhaps we will meet him, and we will come to know. And we are also trying to explore the other doctors, nurses, sisters for other hospitals for their scholarship and fellowship as well. Another one good thing we did, that we have established the committee of the doctors from Nepal and Israel, Nepal-Israel Corona Initiative. We established to combat COVID situation. And they are regularly, they are holding the virtual meetings between Nepali and Israeli doctors. Every week they are holding these virtual meetings, and it almost 5 times they did it. And Nepali doctors, even from the Karnali, the far western region, doctors from so far away, they can even have connection with the Israeli doctors now. They can ask questions, they can share their ideas, experiences about this COVID situations. They are doing this. And we are also exercising to get fellowship programs for doctors, nurses, as I highlighted before. And another, we promoted culture and literature relations. Nepal Academy and Hebrew Writers Association have signed an memorandum of understanding to enhance mutual understanding and friendly relationship between academicians, writers, poets, scholars, and intellectuals of both countries to promote art, culture, literature, etc. Both of them agreed to exchange visits, and some writers and literature already visited Nepal when we did MOU between these two institutions. From Nepal Academy's chancellor, he visited Israel in 2019, and they did MOU. And now later on, they are working on Hitler and Yehudi, which was written by our late Prime Minister B.P. Koirala. They are translating it in English, and some poems they are translating in Hebrew also, from Nepali version to Hebrew version. So they are having the connections now. And now the other areas, what we did, we were successful to accomplish some areas that we succeeded to place a new display board with the help of Israeli authority, which now rightly states that Mount Everest is in Nepal. That is in Kalia Beach. Kalia Beach is nearby the Dead Sea, is throughout the Dead Sea. There are so many, it's so long beach. And in that beach, there was a display, hoarding board display with the other countries named, but there was Mount Everest, but it didn't mention Nepal. Then we worked hard. Within a month, we were successful to change the name. Mount Everest is in Nepal. Because this is a very important place. 4 million tourists visit this beach annually. And we were also successful to form the Nepal-Israel Parliamentary Friendship Group in April 2019. Before I left Nepal, I spoke with the former speaker of Nepal, and he is very helpful to form this friendship group. And we went to meet in Knesset here in Parliament, and we requested to have exchange of visits if they can also form Israel-Nepal Parliamentary Friendship Group, so we can exchange visits of parliamentarians to share their ideas, knowledges, practices with each other. And after all of these initiatives, Nepal Embassy, I received appreciation letter from Ambassador Club on 17th February 2020, as I'm selected as Ambassador of the Year for 2019-2020 by the Ambassadors Club of Israel among 90 heads of mission based in Israel. According to the Ambassador Club, I'm awarding for the excellent performance as a diplomat serving the interest of Nepal in Israel, as well as advancing the relations between the two countries. I really, really feel proud to get this award of excellence discerned by the club. And it is really, I would like to say that it is the honor of Nepal and Nepalese people. And on behalf of our country, we would like to thank the government of Israel and also Ambassador Club of Israel for this award. And now we are having some work for the pipeline. We are trying to do MOU between tourism ministries, MOU in health, MOU between education, science, culture, and sports, smart grid center of excellence, where thousands engineers will be trained for their capacity building in Nepal. And other is visa exemption for diplomatic passport holders has reached the final stage. And we are trying to make collaboration between scientists and engineers of Nepal and Israel. And Nepal Embassy has set up few plans to celebrate the year 2020 as 60th anniversary of establishment of our diplomatic relationship, such as I would would like to highlight. I am now at the point of the closing of my presentation, and we are trying to make exchange of high-level visits from both sides. If it is not this pandemic, definitely our Prime Minister and President of Israel, they have already been exchanged of their visits, but later after this corona, we will be successful to make this happen. And we are making a book to commemorate this 60th years anniversary of our diplomatic relations. For that book, we already received messages from our President, Prime Minister, Foreign Minister of Nepal, and President, Prime Minister, and Foreign Minister of Israel. We already received good wishes for this book, and we collected most of the high-level diplomats related with the Nepal-Israel relations. We already received, and it is now in the press, and we will launch it within this our 60 years anniversary this year in 2020. And we are trying to organize a walkathon exhibition, but I hope that it couldn't be successful very soon because of this situation. But we can establish to bring stamp of the two countries and exchange of plant seeds, and there are also among others. If we can do exchange of plant seeds, definitely we will enrich our agriculture sector and irrigation sector also. And I would like to conclude my few words with my few words to say that we are very proudly say that Nepal Embassy is able to enhance political relations, socio-economic relations, cultural relations, and others. We have been witnessing a growing number of tourists from Israel to Nepal every year. I hope this trend will further increase after COVID. I have requested in various programs to all the Israelis to make Nepal a next holiday destination. Gilad Cohen, who is division head of Ministry of Foreign Affairs who looks after Nepal, he happily offered Israeli citizens to choose destination now in Asia. And the country is Nepal. Now to visit in Asia, the country is Nepal. He spoke in our National Day in 2019. Nepal always remembers the outstanding support of Israel, sending a delegation of 280 professionals and government officials to Nepal for rescue operations immediately after the earthquake 2015, as Ambassador Benny mentioned this. The exchange of visits of heads of state, heads of the government is most awaited to further enhance our relations. And Israel's government's continued support via Moshav to train and educate Nepali students and other Nepalese professionals have greatly contributed in introducing new techniques, technologies, and methods to boost agricultural production and other sectors too. I am very much optimistic that Israel will extend its cooperation in the days ahead to further deepen the relationship. I am confident that our bilateral relations will grow stronger and more stronger in the days ahead. Thank you very much with these words.
Thank you, Her Excellency. I must apologize that I got disconnected and I could not introduce her, though she need no introduction in Nepal. Dr. Anjan Shakya is currently, we all know that she is serving as Ambassador of Nepal to the State of Israel, and she was a board member of Prime Minister Advisory Council for Promotion of Industry and Commerce just before assuming her current position. She was Deputy Executive Director of Institute of Foreign Affairs Nepal. She was a chairperson of International Concern Center Nepal, and she holds PhD in management from Tribhuvan University, and she was a professor at Presidential Business School, which is in West Cliff University, California, US. She was lecturer of Padma Kanya Multiple College, Tribhuvan University. She has been involved in various leading organizations and professional responsibilities for more than 2 decades. She's a renowned singer, so she was talking about that she is able to sing a song from Israel. She has sung more than 100 songs in Nepali, Newari, and Bhojpuri. She has published a number of books, 12.5 of the book, including Foreign Policy of Nepal, Challenges and Opportunities, Vision for Foreign Affairs, Nepal-China Relations, Nepal-India Relations, Nepal-Japan Relations, Nepal-Germany, and many others. For a wide range of social work, she is honored with many national level awards like Nepal Vidya Bhushan, Jana Seva Sri Padak, Gorkha Dachin Bau, and many others. We have just 10 minutes, so we'll try to request our panelists, participants to ask the questions to Excellency Benny Omer, so that because he has to leave at 5:10. So we have received many questions. So let me start with the questions. The first question is for Excellency Benny Omer. One Middle East country closed its mission from Kathmandu. India too was not happy with Nepal when it established diplomatic relations with Israel in June 1960. Preceded by then Prime Minister B.P. Koyala made an official visit to Israel. Further, in late 60s, Nepal voted the Security Council Resolution 242 and 338 in favor of Israel for its right to existence. Being the first country having diplomatic relations and also its first embassy in South Asia, perhaps after Myanmar in entire Asia, how do you foresee the plans to take Nepal-Israel relations to an exemplary heights, recalling this unique friendship of difficult times when Israel's official presence was not in the region?
Well, thank you for the question. I think we are lucky to have Ambassador Dr. Anjan Shakya in Israel. She is very dynamic, very creative, and she doesn't leave an unearthed stone to check in every possible field. Like you could hear before, how many activities you are participating in, if it is vis-a-vis our government, our Prime Minister, President, all the levels, of course, in the Foreign Ministry, the Ambassador of Nepal in Israel nowadays. I myself am supposed within about 2-3 months to end my tenure in office. And I'm sure that the ideas Ambassador Shakya was sharing with us will mature. By this time, we will be able to sign all the agreements pending, and there will be new agreements to be signed in the near future. And I'm sure, since there is a very good will in both sides to enhance and to diversify the relationship in many fields, because it is the interest of our two countries, and the fact that we are a bit far away from each other. You have the highest peak in the world, we have the lowest point on the earth, but I think the relationship is warm, there is very good will, we have many ideas, and we can work more intensively. It's a pity that COVID-19 is avoiding trips from one country to the other. But I hope that once the sky will be open, the international Tribhuvan airport will be open, you will see Israeli businessmen coming, people from academia, culture, and of course, many Israeli tourists, as in the past, they will keep coming to this beautiful country of yours. Not only thanks to Gali Atari, but she contributed enormously to that with a beautiful song that Ambassador Shakya is singing so well. It's amazing, you should hear it. And no wonder she was selected by the Club of Diplomats in Israel as the best performing ambassador among all the diplomatic community in Israel. We have more than 100 diplomats over there, heads of missions, and she is the one. I tell you, it was a wonderful decision to ask Dr. Anjan Shakya to be ambassador of Nepal in Israel. Thank you so much, dear colleague. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Another question is also for you. Maybe just two questions so that you can wrap up in 2-3 minutes. Israel and Nepal has excellent relations, and Israel has supported Nepal in its development. However, Nepal is a Himalayan country which lacks infrastructure such as roads and transportation facilities. So is there any project in the past or coming up in future related to connectivity? And last question for you is, sir, would you like to highlight if there is any security engagement or defense cooperation between the two countries?
Well, let me start from the second one, please. There is a very good, fruitful dialogue between the establishments of defense and security between the two countries, and it's been going on for many more years in the past. We are happy to work with the Ministry of Defense and with the Deputy Prime Minister Ishwar Pokharel, and also the Nepal Army, who has a long tradition of working with the Israeli Army, many, many more years. And by the way, the Chief of Army Staff, General Thapa, was the chief of, the guys back in Israel in the northern border. And as Ambassador Shakya mentioned before, that you have guys in UNIFIL, UNDOF, UNSO, and this is going back many, many years. And we have cooperation in training, in exchanging of know-how. And I see a potential following the meetings I had with both Minister of Defense of Nepal and the Chief of Army Staff, not only in the field of security. I can tell you that following the idea of having an excellent center of excellence in agriculture with the government of Nepal on the federal level, with the Ministry of Agriculture and 7 provinces, Ambassador Shakya can tell you that in December, when Ambassador Gila Skel, the head of Mashar, was here, we met also the army guys, and they would like to have a center of excellence in agriculture for the army. And I believe with them, we can do it even more quickly because, army, they have a culture, efficiency, they work, time is very important and they are very disciplined. So I'm very optimistic. Maybe the first center of excellence in agriculture will be with the army. So it's not only security defense, but also civilian things, because the idea of General Thapa is, and he's working with the guys from Lamjung and the guys from ICAT, Arava Nepal in Lamjung. The idea is to train army servicemen who are retiring from the army. They are still young, in good shape, give them an opportunity to become wonderful farmers using modern agriculture like we do in Israel. It's a wonderful project, and I'm sure we're going to work on it very soon. Going back to the previous question about what we can do together in the field of infrastructure. I can tell you that maybe in terms of finance, we may not be able to bring too much money to the government of Nepal. But what we can offer is know-how, as we do within Mashav activities and fields of cooperation. This is the strongest part. If it is, artificial intelligence, high tech, and so on, we can help with advising, planning, and giving good ideas. We may not be able to be rich enough to offer finance, but we can share a lot of know-how that we accumulated in Israel. I think one of the subjects, when I look at the landslides of the last few weeks following the monsoon, the question of water management, Israel has a lot of experience, which we share with many countries over the world, not only developing countries. Also, some of the countries in the United States are coming to learn from the Israeli experience in water management. So we could share a lot of our know-how with Nepal in this field. You may have too much water sometimes. Sometimes we have a problem of desert, not enough. You have sometimes too much. Both problems can be tackled using Israeli know-how and experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We know that you have to leave at 5:10:15. So you may leave whenever you feel comfortable, but we'd love to have you for a longer time if possible. Now, the next question is for Dr. Anjan Shakya. The question is, do you think Nepal government has harnessed the potentials of engaging with Israel, as Israel enjoys excellence in several sectors? So do you think Nepal has really used its potentials by engaging with Israel? Second is, during your tenure as ambassador, what is the top priority to get support from Israel for development of Nepal?
Thank you very much for the question. Definitely, there are very much potentiality for engaging in different sectors between Nepal and Israel, and I hope that Nepal definitely will cooperate in this diverse field, what we are getting from Israel in different sectors to enrich our knowledge, ideas, technology in different sector in Nepal. And we are working very hard from Nepal Embassy as well as from Israel Embassy to disseminate and to inform each and every situations, whatever we have, to make this happen very near future. So definitely Nepal will get much cooperations from Israel. And another, you are mentioning about the top priority. Actually, the top priority is, my top priority is the self-employment in Nepal. We have to think self-employment. We mustn't stand only in remittance. Remittance is sectors that we are gaining from GDP in percentage. The remittance contribute a lot in our GDP, but I feel that we have to change this scenario with the same employment in Nepal. We have to give employment opportunities in Nepal. That sector is agriculture sector. So we should establish agriculture center of excellence in Nepal. If we can establish thousands and thousands Nepalese professionals, Nepalese farmers, Nepalese students, they can get opportunity, work opportunity in Nepal, and also they will have interactions in research and development. They will establish laboratory. It will be a huge project for Nepal. If at least we can establish one sector, then we can understand how it is important, significant for our country. Then second is definitely caregivers. I have to mention here caregivers, which already we did successful positive scenario from Israel. We already received. Now it took like 7 months for us, for me especially, to convince them to open up in full-fledged to bring caregivers from Nepal to Israel, because they are not happy because of our own problem in Nepal. In past, we have some problem from our Nepali side. That's why it was stopped. Then later on, it begins with the pilot project, and I requested them. Pilot project was already successful, so we have to talk with the full-fledged. Now they are positive and they agreed to do full-fledged, and now they open up around 500 caregivers to bring from Nepal, especially in nursing sectors. This will be the very secured areas, I would like to mention. It is not like the caregivers will come in just made like in home employers, but governments is taking care for them, and employers will be there, but they will work in hospitals, in nursing homes. So this is quite different than the previous one. And around 500, we were successful to make this happen. And another is, I would like to tell you about the education sector is very important, and health sector is as well important. And because we know that Israel is the first country who come to help us at the time of our this crisis situation. So for in point of view, this also we have to think for this crisis management and emergency management system. We have to bring some technology from Nepal. So we are having landsliding problems. Now I'm going to meet with the Minister of Transport in Israel to ask about the transfer of technology in landsliding, how to protect our citizens for having these casualties, which you are facing almost all the years. So this kind of things, emergency management system, these are also very topmost priority sectors, I think, from Israel.
Thank you, ma'am. And now we have 2 more questions, and with that we'll end our program. China and India took more than 4 decades to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel in 1992. What were the factors that paved the way for Nepal to becoming a pioneer nation in establishing diplomatic relations with Israel? And last question is, Nepal has huge potential in tourism and hydropower, which can transform Nepalese economy. Do you think Israel can play a role in this, in the development of tourism and hydropower? If yes, what are those roles and what steps are you taking to achieve that goal of Nepal?
Nepal established the first diplomatic relationship in South Asia with Israel. Then after that, I think that because of the political situations, Nepal established its mission in Israel very lately. But the cooperations already began since very long. And I can tell you that there are almost 30 agriculture center of excellence in India. They got from Israel technology. So we are lacking behind. So we have to, there are so many potentiality, and Israeli government, they are very keen to help Nepal. And every Israeli, if you ask, them, then they know Nepal very well. They love Nepal very much, and we have to explore it. And I'm trying to reach with the silver zone age group. Most of the Israelis, the youth Israelis, after the army training, they used to come to Nepal, and actually they are saving their money. They don't want to pay much. They don't want to spend much. So we are not getting much economic vibrant from this youth Israeli, but we got much more strengthened relations with the youth Israelis when they go back. And then now the youth Israeli who were in Nepal, they are now at the age of 60, 70, almost when I met. They are telling that I went Nepal 30 years ago. I went Nepal 15 years ago. I went Nepal 18 years ago. And they are still remembering the field Nepal. That's why we are trying to cope those Israelis who love Nepal to bring investment opportunities in Nepal. So those matured parents, citizens, we are trying to touch upon them, and we are convincing them. So they are very much impressed, and they told that they would like to come to Nepal for the investment and for as a tourist also. And tourism sector, we already talked with the Minister of Tourism in Israel that we are going to do memorandum of understanding between tourism sectors with both ministries of Nepal and Israel. So definitely there will be some procedures, process, mechanism that we can promote our tourism sector of Nepal and Israel also. And many Israelis people would like to invest in infrastructure development where tourism could be benefited. So these areas definitely it could be happen when this situation will be solved soon. And hydro sectors, we have been listening that so many Israelis come to us and visit us. They want to know how to invest in Nepal in the sector of hydro sector. They really like to invest in those sectors. Not only these sectors, they want to establish dairy farms and livestock also. They want to invest in those sectors where they see the viable area in Nepal that we can export the milk, the dairy products, not inside Nepal, out of Nepal, in abroad also we can export. And they would like to cooperate us. They would like to inform us. They would like to know how to enrich the international market. So we have to work on it, and definitely very near future we will receive such cooperation.
Thank you, ma'am. Excellencies, finally we have come to the end of the program. I would like to thank both our excellencies for their valuable time. It was excellent presentation and discussion. I, on behalf of CDD and NIICE, would like to thank both the speakers for their time and discussion. We'd also like to thank our wonderful participants for their question. The video of this program will be available on YouTube for everyone in a few hours. Hope to see you at our next program. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.